You know, there's a secret ingredient to building strong relationships. It's not about what you say, or how charismatic you are, or even how much you do for someone else. No, the real secret is something so simple, yet so powerful, that most people overlook it entirely. And that secret is listening. Yes, listening. Not just hearing words, but truly listening. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly heard? When someone gave you their full attention, looked you in the eye, or in this case, focused entirely on your words, and made you feel like what you were saying mattered. It's a rare thing, isn't it? But when it happens, it's magical. Here's the thing, listening is more than just being quiet while someone else talks. It's about being present. It's about showing the other person that they matter. That their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences, they're important to you. And when you do that, you're not just building a connection, you're building trust. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a conversation where the other person was just waiting for their turn to speak? You can feel it, can't you? They're not really listening. They're just rehearsing what they're going to say next. And how does that make you feel? Probably not great. But when you truly listen, you're giving the other person a gift. You're saying, hey, I value you. I care about what you have to say. And that's how you create a bond that lasts. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things to do. We live in a world full of distractions. Our phones are buzzing, our minds are racing, and we're constantly thinking about the next thing on our to-do list. But here's the challenge. Can you put all of that aside for just a few minutes? And you give someone your undivided attention. When you do, you'll notice something amazing. People will open up to you. They'll share things they wouldn't normally share. And that's when you'll see the real power of listening. It's not just about understanding someone else, it's about making them feel understood. And let's be honest, isn't that what we all want? To be understood. To know that someone out there gets us. When you listen, you're giving someone that gift. And in return, you'll find that your relationships grow stronger, deeper, and more meaningful. So, the next time you're in a conversation, I challenge you to do this. Listen. Really listen. Don't interrupt. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Just be present. And watch what happens. You might just be surprised at how much of a difference it makes. Because at the end of the day, strong relationships aren't built on grand gestures or fancy words. They're built on moments. Moments where you show someone that they matter. And there's no better way to do that than by listening. Now, let's take this a step further. Listening isn't just about relationships with other people. It's also about understanding yourself. When you take the time to listen to your own thoughts, your own feelings, you start to see things more clearly. You start to understand what you really want, what you really need. And that self-awareness is the foundation of everything else. Think about it. How can you expect to build strong relationships with others if you don't even understand yourself? If you don't know what you're feeling, or why you're feeling it, how can you communicate that to someone else? Listening to yourself is the first step. And here's the beautiful part. When you listen to yourself, you become better at listening to others. It's like a ripple effect. The more you understand your own emotions, the more empathy you have for others. The more you know what it feels like to be heard, the more you want to give that same gift to someone else. But let's not stop there. Listening isn't just about words. It's about body language, tone of voice, even the pauses between sentences. It's about picking up on the little things that someone might not say out loud. The way they hesitate before answering a question. The way their voice cracks when they're talking about something emotional. Those are the moments where listening really matters. And here's the thing, you don't have to be perfect at it. No one is. We all get distracted. We all have moments where we're not fully present. But the key is to keep trying, to keep making the effort. Because every time you truly listen, you're strengthening that relationship. You're building trust. You're creating a connection that can withstand anything. Now, let's talk about why this is so important in today's world. We're more connected than ever, but in some ways, we're more disconnected than ever too. We have hundreds of friends on social media, but how many of them do we really talk to? How many of them do we really listen to? It's easy to get caught up in the noise, the endless notifications, the constant stream of information. But here's the truth, real connection happens in the quiet moments. The moments where you put your phone down, look someone in the eye, and say, "Tell me what's on your mind." And when you do that, you're not just listening to their words. You're listening to their heart. You're showing them that they're not alone, that you're there for them. And in a world that can feel so lonely sometimes, that's one of the most powerful things you can do. But let's not forget, listening is a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice. You're not going to be great at it overnight. There will be times when you get it wrong, when you miss the mark. And that's okay. What matters is that you keep trying, that you keep showing up. Because here's the thing, people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. And when you listen, you're making them feel valued. You're making them feel seen. And that's something they'll never forget. So how do you get better at listening? Start small. And next time you're in a conversation, focus on just one thing, being present. Don't think about what you're going to say next. Don't let your mind wander. Just be there. And if you find yourself getting distracted, that's okay. Gently bring your focus back. It's like training a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. Another tip, ask questions. Not just any questions, but thoughtful ones. Questions that show you're really paying attention. Questions that encourage the other person to open up. For example, instead of saying, "How was your day?" you could say, "What was the best part of your day?" or "What's been on your mind lately?" Those kinds of questions show that you're interested, that you care. And here's a little secret, the more you listen, the more people will want to talk to you. It's like a magnet. When people feel heard, they're drawn to you. They want to be around you, because you make them feel good. But let's not stop there. Listening isn't just about making others feel good. It's also about learning. When you listen, you gain new perspectives. You see things from someone else's point of view. And that can change everything. Think about it, how many arguments could be avoided if we just took the time to listen? How many misunderstandings could be cleared up if we just tried to see things from the other person's perspective? Listening is the key to empathy. And empathy is the key to understanding. When you truly understand someone, it's hard to stay angry at them. It's hard to hold a grudge. Because you see them as a person with their own struggles, their own fears, their own dreams. And when you see someone that way, it changes how you treat them. It changes how you talk to them. It changes everything. So, let's make a commitment. Let's commit to being better listeners. To putting down our phones, turning off the TV, and really being there for the people in our lives. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Not how many followers we have, or how many likes we get, but the connections we make. The relationships we build. And it all starts with listening. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you. Listening isn't just about being quiet and letting the other person talk. It's also about responding in a way that shows you're truly engaged. It's about what we call active listening. Active listening means you're not just hearing the words, you're processing them. You're thinking about what the other person is saying, and you're responding in a way that shows you understand. It's like a dance. You're not just standing there, you're moving with the rhythm. For example, if someone tells you they're feeling overwhelmed, you might say something like, "That sounds really tough. What's been the hardest part for you?" That kind of response shows you're not just listening, you're connecting. And here's the thing, active listening doesn't just benefit the other person. It benefits you too. When you're fully engaged in a conversation, you're more likely to remember what was said. You're more likely to learn something new. And you're more likely to walk away feeling like the conversation was meaningful. But let's be honest, active listening takes effort. It's not something that happens automatically. You have to be intentional about it. You have to make a conscious decision to be present. And that's where a lot of us struggle. We're so used to multitasking, to doing 10 things at once, that it feels unnatural to just focus on one thing. But here's the truth, you can't truly listen if you're not fully present. So how do you get better at active listening? Start by eliminating distractions. Put your phone on silent. Turn off the TV. Close your laptop. Create a space where you can focus entirely on the conversation. Next, pay attention to your body language. Are you making eye contact? Are you nodding along? Are you leaning in slightly? These small gestures show the other person that you're engaged, that you care. And don't forget to reflect back what you're hearing. This is a powerful tool in active listening. If someone tells you they're feeling stressed, you might say, "It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate right now." That simple reflection shows you're not just hearing their words, you're understanding their feelings. Now, let's talk about something else that's crucial, patience. Listening requires patience. It means letting the other person finish their thoughts without interrupting. It means giving them the space to express themselves, even if it takes a little longer than you'd like. And here's why that's so important. When you interrupt someone, you're sending a message. You're saying, "What I have to say is more important than what you're saying." And that can be incredibly damaging to a relationship. But when you're patient, when you let the other person speak without jumping in, you're sending a different message. You're saying your thoughts matter, your feelings matter, and here for you. And that's how you build trust. That's how you create a safe space where people feel comfortable opening up to you. Now, let's take this a step further. Listening isn't just about what happens in the moment. It's also about what happens afterward. It's about following up. For example, if someone tells you they're going through a tough time, don't just listen in the moment and then forget about it. Check in with them later. Send them a text. Ask how they're doing. Show them that you care even when the conversation is over. That kind of follow-up is powerful. It shows the other person that you weren't just listening to be polite. You were listening because you genuinely care. And here's the thing, when you follow up, you're not just strengthening the relationship. You're also reinforcing the habit of listening. You're reminding yourself that listening isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing commitment. Now, let's talk about something that might not be so obvious, listening to yourself. Yes, you heard that right. Listening isn't just about other people. It's also about tuning into your own thoughts and feelings. Think about it, how can you expect to truly listen to someone else if you're not in tune with yourself? If you're not aware of your own emotions, how can you empathize with someone else's? Listening to yourself means taking the time to reflect. It means asking yourself questions like, how am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this way? What do I need? And here's the beautiful part. When you listen to yourself, you become better at listening to others. You become more empathetic, more understanding, more patient. Because here's the truth, we're all human. We all have our own struggles, our own fears, our own insecurities. And when you're in touch with your own emotions, it's easier to recognize those same emotions in someone else. So, how do you start listening to yourself? Start by carving out a few minutes each day for reflection. It could be in the morning, before the day gets busy, or at night before you go to bed. Just take a few minutes to check in with yourself. Ask yourself how you're feeling. And don't judge the answer. Just listen. You might be surprised at what you discover. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked: listening in difficult conversations. These are the conversations where listening is hardest, but also most important. Think about it. When emotions are running high, when tensions are rising, that's when it's easiest to stop listening. That's when it's easiest to get defensive, to interrupt, to focus on your own feelings instead of the other person's. But here's the thing, difficult conversations are exactly when listening matters most. Because that's when people need to feel heard the most. So, how do you listen in a difficult conversation? Start by taking a deep breath. Remind yourself that the goal isn't to win the argument. The goal is to understand the other person's perspective. Next, resist the urge to interrupt. Even if you disagree, even if you feel like the other person is wrong, let them finish. Give them the space to express themselves. And here's a tip: use I statements instead of you statements. For example, instead of saying, "You're not listening to me," you could say, "I feel like I'm not being heard." That small shift in language can make a big difference. It takes the focus off blame and puts it on understanding. And finally, don't forget to validate the other person's feelings. Even if you don't agree with their perspective, you can still acknowledge their emotions. You can say something like, "I can see why you'd feel that way." That kind of validation can diffuse tension. It can create a sense of connection, even in the midst of conflict. Now, let's talk about something that's often misunderstood. Listening doesn't mean you have to agree. It does mean you have to give up your own perspective. Listening is about understanding, not about surrendering. It's about creating a space where both people feel heard. And here's the thing, when both people feel heard, it's easier to find common ground. It's easier to work through disagreements. Because you're not just focused on your own point of view. You're focused on finding a solution that works for everyone. So, the next time you're in a difficult conversation, remember this: listening isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign that you're willing to put the relationship first. And that's what strong relationships are built on. Now, let's talk about something that's often overlooked: the power of silence. Yes, silence. In a world that's constantly buzzing with noise, silence can feel uncomfortable. But here's the thing: silence is one of the most powerful tools in listening. When you allow for silence in a conversation, you're giving the other person space to think, to process, to say what they really mean. Sometimes people need a moment to gather their thoughts, to find the right words. And when you're comfortable with silence, you are giving them that moment. Think about it. How many times have you rushed to fill a silence because it felt awkward? How many times have you jumped in with your own thoughts instead of waiting for the other person to speak? But here's the truth: silence isn't awkward unless you make it awkward. When you embrace silence, you're showing the other person that you're patient, that you're willing to wait for them. And that's a powerful message. Now, let's talk about another aspect of listening: curiosity. Listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about being curious. It's about wanting to understand the other person's world. When you approach a conversation with curiosity, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. You're asking questions. You're exploring their thoughts and feelings. And here's the thing, curiosity is contagious. When you show genuine interest in someone, they're more likely to open up. They're more likely to share things they would normally share. So, how do you cultivate curiosity? Start by asking open-ended questions. Questions that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. Questions that invite the other person to share more. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good day?" you could ask, "What made you smile today?" That kind of question shows you're interested in the details, in the little moments that make up their day. And here's a tip, don't just ask questions, listen to the answers. Really listen. Pay attention to what the other person is saying and let their words guide the conversation. Because here's the truth, listening isn't just about being quiet. It's about being engaged. It's about showing the other person that you value their thoughts and feelings. And when you do that, you're not just building a relationship. You're creating a connection. A connection that can withstand anything. So, the next time you're in a conversation, remember this, listening is a gift. It's a way of showing someone that they matter. And in a world that can feel so disconnected, that's one of the most powerful things you can do. At the end of the day, listening is more than just a skill, it's a gift. It's the foundation of every strong relationship, the bridge that connects us to others, and the key to understanding not just the people around us, but ourselves as well. When you truly listen, you're not just hearing words, you're building trust, creating connections, and making people feel valued. So, the next time you're in a conversation, remember this, listening is the secret to strong relationships. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about showing up, being curious, and making the effort to understand. Because when you listen, you are not just changing the conversation, you're changing lives.